we will talk about a sentence. A sentence has a subject and a predicate. So we will look into it more, we'll discuss, we'll see the examples and see whether we can understand and grasp what is there. So a sentence has two parts. Every sentence has a subject and a predicate. So that's what we are going to do. Subject and predicate. And predicate. We are continuing the sentence. So what did I say? A sentence has two parts. A subject for the sentence and a predicate for the sentence. Now, a group of words cannot be called a sentence if these two, subject and the predicate, is not there. If any one missing, you cannot call that group of words a sentence. So, a sentence has two parts. Every group of word that has subject and a predicate, we say it's a complete sentence. For the group, if one part is missing, we cannot say it is a complete sentence. Okay, now I'll write some sentences for you to understand the subject and the predicate. You need to have both to complete the sentence. The earth rotates on its axis. Now here we have complete sentence, begins with the capital letter and ends with the full stop. Now we are looking to is this sentence has a subject, this sentence has a predicate. It begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop. As I said, a sentence has two parts and both the parts has to be present to make a complete sentence. Now, here when we talk about the earth rotates on its axis. When we say the earth rotates, the most important part here, what we are talking about is the earth. So that is the subject. What are we talking about? We are talking about the earth. And what is happening to the earth? The earth rotates on its axis. So the earth is the subject, the rest rotates on its axis. The remaining second part is called the predicate. Okay, so in a sentence, you need to identify what are we talking about? What's the topic about? Earth. The rest is the predicate. So we have the earth as the subject rotates on its axis. That's called the predicate. So we learn to identify the subject and this, the rest of it, this portion is the predicate. So we learn to identify the two parts of a sentence. I'll give you another sentence. The boys and girls. The boys and girls are playing. It's a complete sentence, begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop. Now, who are the most important people here? The boys and girls. So the boys and girls, that is the boys and girls, that is the subject. This is the subject. And are playing is the predicate. So this is the predicate, the other half of the sentence. The first, the most important, you're talking about the earth. The earth is the subject, rotates on its axis is the predicate. Here the boys and girls, what are they doing? Playing. The boys and girls are the subject we are talking about. Next. Sita is reading. Sita is reading a book. Again, it's a complete sentence. It begins with a capital letter. It ends with a full stop. And who is the most important? What is the most important part of this? Sita. What is Sita doing? Is reading a book. So Sita is the subject we are talking about, and is reading a book is the predicate. Second part, P. So it's a complete sentence. Sita is the subject we are talking about. What she doing is reading a book. The dogs. The dogs are barking. The dogs are barking. Again here, we have a complete sentence. It begins with a capital letter. It ends with the full stop, and it's got two parts. What's the most important part? Dogs. The dogs are the most important part. So this is the subject, and are barking. That is the predicate, the second part. As I told you, every sentence has two parts. A subject it should have, and it should have a predicate. They must say something about the subject. Now, the sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop. Look at these four sentences and let us look at the subject and the predicate. The earth rotates on its axis. The earth is the most important, so that's the subject of the sentence, and rotates on its axis is the predicate. The boys and girls are playing. The boys and girls, they are the subject we are talking about, are playing. That is the predicate. The third sentence we have, Sita is reading a book. Sita is the subject. She is reading a book. Is reading a book is the predicate. The last sentence we have, the dogs are barking. The dogs are the subject, and are barking is the predicate. So a sentence, a complete sentence, has two parts, a subject and a predicate. It begins with a capital letter and it ends with a full stop. Now, the cat ran up the tree. The cat ran up the tree, begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. What is the subject here? The cat. So the cat is the subject we are talking about, and ran up the tree, that is the second part, and that's a predicate. Okay? So like that you can make your own sentence or pick out sentences and find out what are we talking about. The teacher told us a story. Teacher is the subject. Told us a story. That's a so like that you can find out, write down sentences, look at what are we talking about. The sun shines in the morning or sun shines in the sky. What are we talking about? What is the subject? The sun. The rest is the predicate. So do more exercise for better understanding of subject and predicate. Now I'm going to write down subject and predicate separately, and we'll form sentence together. Okay? When you do a lot of exercises, it will become easy to understand what I'm trying to tell you. So now I'm going to separate. Okay. The child. The sun. The hungry man. The rose. The brave soldiers. The brave soldiers, and finally her sister. Now here I have one part, that's a subject, and I'm going to put the predicate, and you choose the correct ones and form sentences. Okay? For the food. Boat ride. Okay? Ran across the road. Is a symbol of beauty. Finally, you have defeated the enemy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have 6 parts, 6 sets of, 2 sets of 6 words I put down. A sentence has a subject and a predicate. It begins with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. So now you choose words from here, the first and the second lot, and let's make the complete sentence, and let us look at it, which is the subject, which is the predicate. Now obviously, these are the subject I put down, that's the predicate, but then we need to match it up. Now, the child. What will you say? The child enjoyed the boat ride. The child is a subject, enjoyed the boat ride. That is the predicate. The child, subject, enjoyed the boat ride. So we got the matching done. The sun, what happened to the sun? Sun is the subject, rises in the east. So that's the second one. Sun, the sun. That's the subject we are talking about. The predicate is rises in the east, begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Third one, the hungry man. The hungry man waited for the food. Hungry man is the subject, waited for the food is the predicate, begins with the capital letter and it ends with the full stop. And the fourth one, the rose. The rose is a symbol of beauty. The rose is a symbol of beauty. The rose is the subject and is a symbol of beauty is the predicate. It begins with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. And then you have here the brave soldiers. The brave soldiers defeated the enemy. Begins with a capital letter, it ends with the full stop. So this is the subject, that's the predicate. And finally, her sister ran across the road. Begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop. Her sister ran across the road. Now, look at all the 6 sentences. Here we have all the subjects. Here we have all the predicate. Now we are putting the 2 sentences together. Let's go over it again. The child enjoyed the boat ride. Subject, predicate, begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. The sun rises in the east. Begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. The sun is the subject, rises in the east is the predicate. The hungry man is the subject, waited for the food. Begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop, and that's it. Next one, the rose. The rose is the subject, where the predicate. The rose is a symbol of beauty, begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. Then the brave soldier, that is the subject, defeated the enemy. That is the predicate, begins with the capital letter and ends with the full stop. And finally, we have her sister. Her sister is the subject, H, capital beginning, ran across the road and ends with the full stop. So we have joined the subject and the predicate. A sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. It begins with a capital letter and it ends with the full stop. Now, I'm sure you understood better what is a sentence, how to segregate subject and the predicate. Now, I'll give you few sentences. We'll pick out subject and the predicate. So, pick out. Pick out the subject and the predicate. Indira Gandhi was a great leader. A great leader. His mother brought him up well. Brother drives a car. Drives a car. Elephants are found. Elephants are found in the forest. Forest. The house has a sloping roof. Some animals are active at night. So now we have 6 sentences here, and these sentences are complete. It has a subject and a predicate. So now we are going to look at the sentence. So we are talking about subject and predicate. Pick out the subject and the predicate. Okay. Indira Gandhi was a great leader. His mother brought him up well. Radha drives a car. Elephants are found in the forest. The house has a sloping roof. Some animals are active at night. Now, let's look at it. Indira Gandhi is the subject. We are talking about a great leader. So now you have here Indira Gandhi. That is the subject we are talking about. Was a great leader. That is the predicate. Was a great leader. That's the predicate. P for predicate, S for subject. Now, the sentence is complete. It has two parts. A sentence has two parts, the subject and the predicate. Indira Gandhi is the subject, was a great leader. The predicate, it begins with a capital letter. It ends with a full stop. Always remember, any sentence begins with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. His mother brought him up well. His mother is again the subject. His mother is the subject. Brought him up well. That is the predicate. Brought him up well. That is the predicate. So you have the two parts. Begins with the capital letter H, ends with the full stop. His mother is the subject. Has brought him up well. Next one is Radha drives a car. Radha is the subject. We are talking about Radha. She can drive a car. So drives a car, that's the predicate. Okay? This is the subject and the predicate. Okay. So Radha begins with capital letter, name of a person, ends with the full stop. Elephants are found in the forest. Which is the subject? Elephants. Elephant, we are talking about the elephants. That's the subject. And then you have are found in the forest. That's the second part, and that's the predicate. The second part is the predicate. You have are found in the forest. So elephants are found in the forest. Elephants is the subject. You begin with the capital letter, the first word, and then you end with the full stop. Every time, remember, sentence, you must end with the full stop. Finally, you have the house has a sloping roof. What are we talking about? We are talking about the house. The house. That's the subject. What does the house have? Has a sloping roof. That is the predicate. Has a sloping roof. That's the predicate. Okay? And it begins with the capital letter and it ends with the full stop. Finally, you have some animals are active at night. Not all animals. Some. What is the subject? Some animals. That's the subject. Some animals are active at night. So you have active are active at night. That's the predicate. Let's look at all the 6 sentences. What did we learn today? We learned that a sentence has 2 parts, a subject and a predicate. And here what are we doing in this exercise? We are picking out the subject and we are picking out the predicate and writing it down. The first sentence, Indira Gandhi was a great leader. The subject is Indira Gandhi and then was a great leader. That is the predicate. Next we have, his mother brought him up well. His mother is the subject, brought him up well. That's the predicate. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Third one we have, Radha drives a car. Radha, the subject, drives a car is the predicate. Begins with the full capital letter, ends with the full stop. The fourth sentence, elephants are found in the forest. We're talking about the elephant, that's the subject, are found in the forest, predicate. Begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. The house has a sloping roof. We are talking about the house, the subject. What is the subject? The house. The rest is the predicate. Has a sloping roof. Begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. Finally, the last one. Some animals are active at night. Only some animals. So what is the subject? What are we talking about? We're talking about the subject is some animals. Then are active at night, that's the predicate. So now we have learned a sentence has 2 parts, a subject and a predicate. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. So now, what is the main part of the what are we talking about in the sentence? What is the main part? That's the subject. So today we learned doing this exercise to segregate the subject from the predicate. Now we will do another small exercise for us to find. I give you the subject and the predicate differently, and you choose to form the sentence correctly. Choose the subject. Choose the subject and the predicate. So we're going to choose the subject, going to choose the predicate to form the sentence correctly. Okay? India. Second, Mary. And third, George. And we have had a little lamb. Next you have can eat fast. Then you have is a big city, a big country, sorry. Now I have two parts here. And what we are going to do, we are going to choose from here and make a complete sentence. Okay. In India, here you have the subject, here you have the predicate. But the second part is the predicate, the first part is the subject. Now you match it to get the sentence correctly. The first one, so you get the first one. India is a big city. India, big country, sorry. India is a big country. Okay, now let's look at it. India is a big country, and we have here India. As I said, India is the subject, is a big country, is the predicate. You have the predicate. Okay? India is a big country, and you have the second part as predicate. So now you would learn to choose the subject and the predicate. And the next one we have is Mary had a little lamb. Had a little. Mary had a little lamb. What should we remember? Capital letter ends with the full stop. So we have the first part, Mary, being the subject, and then you have the second part, had a little lamb, ending with the full stop. That's the predicate. And finally, you have here, third one, George. George can eat fast. He can eat fast. But actually, he should not eat fast. Yes? Now, George begins with the capital letter. It ends with the full stop. George is the subject. Can eat fast is the predicate. Look at it very carefully. when you get two half sentences, how to make a proper subject and predicate, club it up and make a sensible sentence. So what are we doing? Choosing the subject and the predicate correctly to form a sentence. India is a big country. India is the subject, is a big country is the predicate. Mary had a little lamb. Mary is the subject, had a little lamb. That is the predicate. George can eat fast. George is the subject, can eat fast is the predicate. So we learned to join two bits of sentences to make a complete sense, and we know which is the subject, which is the predicate. Begins, a sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. A sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop.